Hello, my name is Gertrude, and this is the Tech Girl podcast. I believe we're all created to have a purpose on this earth. The best thing you can do is inevitably seek your purpose. That's what I'm trying to do with this podcast. I speak to different people that have gone through different tech journeys in order to learn from them, as well as to discuss how people can get into tech. I hope to encourage and support more people to take up tech-related careers. In this episode, I chat with Kedasha. Kedasha is a developer advocate and creator of itsthatlady.dev on Instagram. In our conversation, she talks about what it means to work as a developer advocate and breaks down developer relations in general. Kedasha was also candid to talk about personal finances and why it's important as a techie to look into your personal finances, as well as how you can manage your finances coming from a certain bracket of earning to a larger or even six-figure income. Kedasha also gives tips on how you can get started, as well as her journey coming from social work to working in tech. Let's get into the interview. Hey, Kedasha, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good too. Firstly, thank you so much for coming on the Tech Girl podcast. I am really excited to have you. I have followed you for a while and I love what you're doing on Instagram, especially. I'm all about your content, always looking forward to seeing your Insta stories, your posts, and just everything.
Cool, thank you. It's always so interesting to me when people tell me that, oh my goodness, I love your content. Oh my goodness. So I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. Happy you like it.
Is it hard to take a compliment?
For me, yes. It's something I'm working on.
Oh, it's understandable, but it's great and very educative. I'm sure a lot of people find it educative as well. But before we get into all of that, I was just wondering, what has been your favorite book of all times?
Oh my gosh, what a question. My favorite book of all times, it's by Jodi Picoult, and it's nonfiction. It's called Sing You Home.
Okay.
I forgot what the premise is, but what I love about Jodi Picoult's book is she relates it back to real life and really cause you to be like reflective about the decision and choices you make in your life and how it affects other people. Another book I like of hers is Small Great Things. Wow, I don't remember the premise of these books. I just remember that they were really excellent. And I learned a lot from them, and they made me like rethink a lot of things of how I perceive people, think about things, life, all that jazz. But yeah, definitely my favorite book of all time.
I have not read it or seen it around, but sounds interesting. I would definitely look for it and also read it. I'm always looking out for authors that I haven't really heard of or read, and genres as well, because when you have a certain type of books that you read or people that you read, you always stick to that. So I always get curious and try to see what else is there and broaden.
I love that. Another book I really love is The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. You can actually read this book for free online. It's all about like investing and how to invest simply for financial independence and financial freedom.
Yes.
Love that book because it makes investing so simple.
It breaks it down.
Because it doesn't have to be all complicated and convoluted with all the big words and terms. Yeah, so that's another book I really like too.
Nice. I'm putting those on my list and have to see and read all of them. But what about a typical day for you? What does it look like?
Oh, so typical day right now for me, it's quite boring. People ask me this all the time online, and I haven't filmed a video because it's very boring. So typical day, I wake up and I try to move my body. I try. It doesn't always work out, but I do try. Then I'll, shower, get ready for work. And the first thing I do in the morning when I wake up actually is not even move my body. It's check my calendar. So I'll check my work calendar to see if I have any meetings early in the morning. That way I know how to kind of plan my day and plan my morning.
And does that mean if you're not having meetings, then it's no makeup, no fixing up, or it's just
absolutely.
So that you're
Absolutely. That's a part of it too. It's just like, how dressy should I be today? Am I going to be on camera? But it's also so that I'm not late. So typically I like to start my day at 10 a.m. for work, but sometimes I have meetings a lot earlier. So I check my calendar, then I try to do some movement, get ready for work, and have breakfast. And then I'll come on the computer. And so typically I'm responding to Slack messages, try to look at the emails. I am not a fan of emails. There are so many unread emails in my inbox right now. Attend any important meetings. And so as a developer advocate, I write a lot of blog posts. I do blog posts, code demos, a lot of internal community work at my company. And so I will follow up on anything that, like, for example, if I have a blog post, like this morning I had a blog post and the editor, she had like a whole lot of comments. So I spend some time addressing the comments, and then once that's done, then I have stand up at about 10:45. And then after stand up, I pretty much have the rest of the day to myself if I don't have any meetings in between. And during that time, I am either researching something for a blog or watching a video to learn something, because I'm very new to cloud and security. And so I have to beef up my knowledge a lot. So yeah, that's why I said my days are boring. So I'm either writing or reading or watching a video on something that I'm learning. It's kind of nice to get paid to learn. It's amazing. But that's literally what my day looked like. Before I became a developer advocate, my day was mostly in coding. So replace the reading and learning with coding in a code base like all day, unless there were like meetings in between. But that's pretty much my day. There's nothing exciting. It's not exciting. It's very boring.
It actually sounds super exciting. And I like that you mentioned that you're a developer advocate, which I am as well. Nice. Super amazing. We've talked a lot about like what the role is, but could you briefly break it down for people that don't know what developer advocates do? Developer relations in general.
Yeah. So a developer advocate it's a person who pretty much helps developers of a particular company's product be successful with that product. So let's think about a company like GitHub, for example. We all know and love GitHub.
Yes.
GitHub publishes a lot of content. We see them on YouTube. We see them on dev.to with blog posts. We see them on even TikTok. I've seen some TikToks with GitHub, and all the content that they're pushing out is by developer advocates, and it's for us developers to be successful with GitHub. So that's pretty much the baseline of what advocates do. So as a developer advocate, we create blog posts, code demos, YouTube videos, we go to conferences, we do talks, we go on podcasts, and it's all in an effort to advocate on behalf of a company and allow developers in the wild to know about the software that our company has. And that's pretty much what a developer advocate do. It's a lot of work.
It is so much work. And could you also touch a little bit on the kinds of skills that are needed for developer advocates roles?
So firstly, developer advocates are engineers. We are software engineers. We are software engineers. So we have the skills of engineers, and we're paid like engineers because that is our basic skill set. So you have to be a software engineer. And depending on the company, that could look like being very front-end heavy, back-end heavy, data heavy, machine learn. It could be like a plethora of things depending on the software of the company. And so having coding skills is essential. Sometimes it's language agnostic, so it doesn't really matter what your preferential or your language preference is, just need to know how to program. So that's essential. Content creation, is also very important. If you want to get into developer relations or developer advocacy, start by writing technical blog posts or making videos on the TikToks, or starting your own podcast or Insta. But definitely learn how to be a content creator, learn how to create a content calendar, how to manage a community, responding to comments. Content creation is very important. Knowing how to edit, use editing tools, all that jazz. Writing, also very important. Knowing how to break down complex technical topics and deliver it in a way that people understand, even if it's a brand new person to the tool. That is essential, and that leaks into communication.
Yes. It does.
You have to know how to communicate well. That is reading, writing, speaking, because you're going to be interacting with a wide variety of engineers, from newbies to people who've been programming for 20 years. And you want to,
and people that have used the product way longer than you have.
And so you have to know how to navigate through all those various experiences to communicate effectively. And I think for developer advocates, presenting, so not all advocates like to go to conferences and present, but a lot do. So I think working on being a content creator will help you to hone your presentation skills. But and also just being kind and friendly and like helping. I find a lot of developer advocates are just very nice people.
I find that too.
But so those are some of the skills I think advocates need.
Amazing. And you also mentioned that before you became a developer advocate, so what were you doing before becoming a developer advocate? And we also need to talk a little bit, we'll get into that in a little bit, how you got to that point, but then just mention what you were doing before and that role, what it looked like.
Yeah, so before I became a developer advocate, I worked as a software engineer for 2 years, primarily on the front end side of a very large financial company's software. And so I used technologies such as JavaScript, React, Redux, Node, just for testing, Cypress sometimes. I got a little taste of Docker and the Kubernetes, though I'm not experienced in it, but we did use it in our code. But it was a lot of work like that. So I got to work with product managers and UX designers and learning how to navigate business needs and put it into code. But thankfully my manager dealt with that. But so I worked as a software engineer for 2 years, primarily on the front end. And in addition to that, I started to build up my audience online because I think a year into my software engineering role, I realized, wow, boring coding all day. And then I started to learn about developer advocacy. And so I'm just okay, I'm going to build an audience and see if I can get a developer advocacy role from that. And I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But so that's what I did before DevRel.
That's really nice that you also planned the transition, because it's it's not so many people that will actually know how they're going to navigate this, and especially when you are not yet in this technical space to know the different kinds of roles and opportunities that are available to you. So that's really nice that you did that.
Absolutely. I am a planner. I plan everything. If it's not planned, it's not going to get done.
It's not happening. No, that's really good. I'm a planner as well, but I don't get into the nitty-gritty details, but I like to have the big picture and everything else like that. But how did you get into software engineering?
Man, it was just random. So before software engineering, I was a social worker. So my last job as a social worker is I worked at a government place doing finance. Don't ask me how I got into finance. I just do what I want to do. So I was working on payroll stuff. And so because I had access to all that information, I saw my manager was earning, what their manager was earning, and what their manager was earning. And I was just like, that's it. I'm gonna need more. I'm gonna need more than that. But then there was one day I was scrolling on Insta, and at the time I followed a lot of financial influencers, and one of these finance people, she was just like, I taught myself how to code, and I got a 6-figure job. And I was just like, what is 6 figures? What is code? What are you talking about? What is software engineer? So I swiped up, read her blog post. And so her blog post led me to Free Code Camp. I got into Code Academy. I was just like, oh, this is what I want to do. And so I applied to go to a coding boot camp.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so hard. And then I got a job like 9-10 months later. I got a job from that. And so that's kind of how I fell into software engineering. It was a very intentional choice because I was looking on how to dramatically increase my income because your girl was struggle busing. And I didn't want to struggle for the rest of my life.
That's really, really inspirational because it's so hard because a lot of people talk about exponential growth with your finances and how you can increase your earning potential, but rarely do they give you insight as to how you can do that. Most people will focus on get a side hustle and do that, but then what if that's not for everyone as well? How can you just with your day job have exponential growth in your earning potential? So that's really amazing that
a lot of times I find, especially in today's society, especially in America with inflation constantly going up, it's not really that people have like a spending problem. We mostly have an income problem. We don't earn enough. Like rent is $2,500, but I bring home $2,000. How am I going to pay for a place to live, plus eat, plus healthcare,
plus go to work before the pandemic?
You know what I'm saying? So I think the adage of like, oh, just increase your income, oh, get a side hustle. It's like, I can't even pay my bills. How am I going to get a side hustle if I can't even eat?
Yeah, exactly. And you need to put in money into the side hustle before you can earn from it.
Exactly. So I think even a lot of times in the tech community, people say like, don't go into tech if you're doing it for the money. But it's just like, sometimes it has to be about the money because I don't see a way out. Talking about money. I like talking about money, but this isn't
it's important to talk about money. Well, this is Tech Girl Podcast, and Tech Girls are all rounded. We're not just techies, coding and doing all that kind of technical stuff. We're all rounded. We also need to be good with our finances. So yes, talk about money. And there's not a lot of people that openly talk about money. So yeah.
I know. I've been thinking about like, how can I integrate money into my content? And I'm still thinking about how to do that because it's like, it's crazy to go from earning $27,000 to earning $75,000. It's just like, oh my gosh, how do I manage this? And like some people are going from 30,000 to 100,000. And knowing how to manage your money is what's going to make you successful, because you can earn 100K but still live paycheck to paycheck, and that is no bueno.
No.
But yeah, we need to be well-rounded and know how to manage your money. Let me stop talking. You go ahead.
No, I'm all for it. I love it. It's so important. Like money has to be an open conversation. And I was saying the same thing, like even salaries need to be an open conversation, because it feels unfair, especially when you're a job seeker. You go through the whole recruitment process and only at the end do you know how much you will potentially earn. And you would have put in so much, which you wouldn't have if you knew from the beginning, like, okay, maybe this is not what I'm looking for, even though you could research, so you will have an idea, but when you get the offer is when you actually know. So
yeah,
I
know it bites. It's just like, I don't know, I just need companies to be realistic, and we're all working for money. I have a skill, you have a gap. I am going to trade my skill and my time for the money. So like,
it's an exchange of value.
Yes, it is an exchange of value. So it's just like, why be so secretive about the salary? But I mean, it's getting better. I've seen more salary ranges and job postings. So I think it's slowly getting better. But I agree with you.
It will be good when we get to a point where it's an open conversation. You talked about being in a boot camp. I did a boot camp as well. How long was the boot camp? Was it a paid boot camp? Everything boot camp.
Yeah. So the boot camp I went to was 9 months, 10 months. It was long. It was a long time.
Was it full stack?
It was full stack. So I learned how to be a full stack engineer. And so it was full stack. So I didn't have to pay anything. So the boot camp I went to, they had something called an ISA, which is an income sharing agreement. So I agreed to be trained for free initially, and then I wouldn't have to start paying anything back until I got a job earning over, I think it was $50,000 at the time. So and the payment was 17% of your gross income for 2 years, up to $30,000. So that was the agreement I signed.
Yeah, it must have hurt that first time.
It hurt a lot, but I paid it off February of this year, and I'm amazed. I'm so happy to own all my money now. But people ask me if I regret it, and I don't, because I didn't have any other options, and I didn't want to take out like a loan to do this. And so I was very grateful that there was this ISA, but there are a lot more free programs today that you can apply for and to do without paying up to $30,000 for a course.
And also, I would just mention, because Kedasha is in the US, for people in Europe, we also have a lot of options, and particularly in Sweden. If there's anyone that's listening from Sweden, I would say like you do have options as well, and you can take it out through CSN. This is something that everyone that's in Sweden knows about. I won't go into details about it because none of it is sponsored, but maybe eventually I will specifically talk about this, but just so that you know, you do have these options as well.
That's awesome.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So what has been the most fulfilling in your journey this far?
Not being poor, girl. That was a bit too honest, but it's true. I talk about it all the time, but just like not having to struggle. I grew up in Jamaica, and we struggled. Single mom, all that jazz. And then I moved to the US, studied social work of all things, and then struggled some more. And so like being at a point in my life where I'm not struggling, I'm just like, wow, like my mind has opened up so much. Like I'm able to share content online for free because I have the mental space to do that because I'm not worried about paying XYZ, not paying XYZ. How am I going to afford XYZ? It's the mental freedom you get when you're not struggling for basic life necessities. It's amazing. And that has honestly been the most impactful and beneficial thing about this journey. It's about the money. I don't care. But I have found a lot of purpose in educating and helping the especially minority community in terms of like what programs are available, how to use certain technologies, and all that jazz. So I have found purpose because I'm not struggling. So
That's so good. So I like not being poor. Nobody wants to be
Girl.
poor.
Listen.
I moved from Zambia to Sweden, and I always say to myself, I'm not going to have left everything that I know, people that I love the most in the world, to come and struggle. It's just not going to happen. It's not for me.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah. What about challenging? What has been the most challenging so far?
Honestly, keeping up with technology.
Yeah.
So like in my previous career as a social worker, you learn the things, you do an internship, you get a job, and yeah, you have to do like CEUs or continuing education units, but it wasn't so intense. Technology changes so fast. It's like now, instead of JavaScript for front-end development, it's TypeScript. You need to know TypeScript, and you have to know React. It's not even a
optional or like,
thank you. It's like you have to know React, you have to know TypeScript, you have to know testing. When I was learning just 3 years ago, those things weren't have tos. It was just like nice to know.
Nice, exactly.
But it's just like technology changes so rapidly, and especially in the front end ecosystem, there are so many development tools. It's just like, oh my gosh, can I just figure out how to name my variable before learning a new technology? So like that has honestly been the most challenging, and especially like one thing I've learned is like working in a code base and building a project, two different things. So like when you start working at a company in their code base, you're maintaining the code base and you're adding features on top of that code base. When you build your own projects, you're doing everything from scratch. So you're better able to understand and know how to use technology. And so another thing I struggle with is finding time outside of work to learn those technologies and tools to keep my skills sharp. It's difficult.
I can agree to that because as well, TypeScript has become a big thing, and a lot of not to speak too much about like my work, but a lot of the work you have to improve it to be at a point where it's reflective of today's technologies. And the good thing is when you have learnt one language, you can easily, relatively easily learn a different one and apply the skills that you already have to working with the new technologies. But it's just keeping up. It's really not easy.
It's not. And like coding outside of work, it's exhausting because like you work all day and then you're telling me I need to keep VS Code open and build a project. It's difficult.
Pretty much.
It's difficult. But I think like a good way to do it is open source projects. So there are a lot of open source projects that you can contribute to. You can read the code, keep up with the skills, learn a new framework, or, contribute to the project. And that's a great way to, I guess, keep things going. But that's still hard, right? It's still hard.
And also just choosing what open source projects you can contribute to, because you just don't want to jump onto something. It should be something that you at least find interesting, especially that you're doing it outside work. So maybe it doesn't have to be work related. Maybe it can be more about finance, if you're interested in finance or whatever else you're interested in. There's always open source projects that you can work on that are related to like your interest.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for newbie? First, before we get to that one, how would you describe in your own words what working in tech is?
What is working in tech? So I guess the base question to that is, what is tech?
Exactly.
So like tech is an industry, just like finance, just like insurance. Tech tech is an industry made up of a lot of companies. And so you don't have to necessarily be a tech company, meaning you don't have to necessarily be a GitHub where you have a software that developers work on in order to be in the tech industry. You have a lot of finance companies who are in the finance industry who have software because they give it to their customers to use for online banking. They're also in the tech industry because of the fact that they have software. So like the tech industry, working in tech is broad. It's just like if you say, oh, I work in tech, it means you work in the tech industry. If you say, oh, I'm a technologist, it means you have a very technical role in the tech industry. I see a lot of this confusion on like TikTok where people go flood people's comments and say, you don't work in tech. And I'm just like, yes, they do. Even if they're a sales representative, they work at a tech company. They work in the tech. Yeah, they work in the tech industry. They're selling software. And so I think there's like a lot of gatekeeping in terms of like working in tech, but it's just like tech is an industry. Who cares? Who cares if you're technical? The tech industry at large pays very well. And I think that's why a lot of people are getting into the industry. And we also need non-technical, I hate to say non-technical, but non-technical people to work in the tech industry. And non-technical meaning you're not coding, you're not doing anything that's like SQL based, or like, you're not doing anything intense. Customer success, customer service, product management, those are all important roles. Wow, I feel like I'm on like a pedestal preaching. But like working in tech means you work in the tech industry.
And at the end of the day, it's end to end. You all can't be developers. Correct. So
please, everybody don't be developers. No.
No, you don't have to.
Coding is hard. So if you don't need to code, don't do it.
And if you don't enjoy it, you don't need to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And you still have the high earning potential. Do you have any advice for people that are curious about getting into tech?
The first thing I would say is to research. Go on Google and type in jobs in tech, and you will see a lot of blog posts about technical and non-technical, coding and non-coding roles in the industry that you can start to look into. One thing I liked to do, even now, I like to just go on a random company's page and go to their job listing and see what careers they have there. And if I don't know something, I Google it. Google, look it up. I find a lot of people, they just want to be spoon-fed information. And one of my other advice is be curious. Curiosity will take you very far in a technical career or like working in the tech industry. And like get out of your head and just do it. Just do something. Time just passes. And so if you're sitting there and just ruminating on, oh my gosh, I should do this. Oh my gosh, what if I don't get in? Oh my gosh, time is just going to pass. And then it's going to be 2 weeks later. And you're going to be like, wow, I should have just started. Yes, just start.
Just start. That's true. I to start my bootcamp as well. It was such, before I actually deciding to go for a bootcamp actually is where my just get started happened, because I had so many reasons as to why it was not the right time. But luckily I have a really good friend who just pushed me. She's like, just do it.
Yes.
just start. Okay. And so I like that advice that you just have to get started, because you never know. There was, I don't know if it's Jim Rohn or Tim Ferriss, one of them, around that space, who said, in a few years' time, and I might be getting this all wrong, like the quote and all, but it's something around, in a few years' time, you will arrive. You decide what the destination will be. So whether or not you decide to get started, the truth is you will still be at a place where you have to arrive, but you need to have done something for you to arrive at a place that you want to be at because you will arrive and then you might arrive at a place that's like, oh my God, I should have done that. Maybe I would be at a different destination. So
and you know, that's the thing I've learned about life. It's just like you just have to give it a go, because why not? Why not? Like, time is gonna go by, and if you don't like it, you learned a new skill that is super valuable and that you can bring with you in whatever else you decide to do. I find that it goes back to being curious, like curiosity. I heard Oprah say one time, like, follow your curiosity. And she often says, like, happiness is the joy you feel striving towards your potential. And I find like curiosity kind of leads you down a path of figuring out what you want to do in the world while you're alive. But yeah, just do it. Just do it. I do have like a little mini guide I put together on how to get started in tech as a developer. So you can check that out if you want.
And is it a blog post or it's on your Instagram? Because I will add it to
it's like a little downloadable thing. I can send it to you after this.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's just like, just do it. Just do it. I'm not a fan of like procrastinating or like taking 10 months to figure out, oh my God, should I do it? It's just like, oh my God, should I do it? Let me try it. Oh, wow, this is interesting. Do it.
I agree. So any practical tool or resource, like let's say after hearing this, I decide I'm going to do it. Where should I go? Like, what's the next best step? What resource or tool should I jump on to get started?
Yeah,
just one or two. Yeah.
I think after you figure out what role you want to do and you notice what skills are required for that role, figure out what resources best applies to that role. So what do I mean? When I saw coding, I was just like, wow, this is amazing. And then I did some deep digging onto like what roles. So there was software engineer, backend engineer, DevOps engineer, all the engineers. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to do front-end engineering because it seems like it's less intense to get into. Then I made a list of all the technologies required for front-end engineering. And then I started to study based on that list. Applicable sites, Free Code Camp, Plural sites, LinkedIn Learning. Don't sleep on LinkedIn Learning. I know in the US, you can get access to LinkedIn Learning through your library. Scrimba is also a good site. And
Norwegian,
YouTube,
I would say.
And YouTube. There is a wealth of knowledge on YouTube University. And it is free. It is gratis. It is free, okay? But yeah, that's where I would start. And don't get too caught up in your head about, oh my God, am I doing this right? Oh my God, why is it taking so long? Oh my God, it's so hard. I'm so dumb. No, you're not. You're not dumb. You're not stupid. You're not silly. The stuff is difficult. It's a process. Yeah. And it's just like, embrace the learning, embrace the journey, but figure out what role you want. And if you don't know what role you want, just go where the money reside and, go from there.
You have to start somewhere because I was saying this to another person just the other day. You don't know how much opportunities there is in the industry when you're looking from the outside in, because some people don't even have like these titles that we've all heard about, like full stack and front end and blah, blah, blah. So when you get started and you get that first role, then you'll be exposed to so many different roles. There's like domain experts, there's like marketing developers, there's business intelligence developers, like there's all these kinds of roles that people don't usually speak about or we don't hear about. But once you get in there, then you'll be like, oh, then based on my previous experience and my skills, then this is the next best step. And then you work towards that. So it's just about getting started, because where you start is not where you will be for the rest of your life.
Exactly. And like, that's one thing I really appreciate about the tech industry. It's just like, you can move around, not easily, but strategically. based on your previous experience. You are correct in everything you just said, Gertrude. Yes.
and it's also very clear what you need, like, to get from where you are to the next step. And so.
And a lot of the big tech companies, they provide free training on a lot of different things that you want to do. But sometimes I feel like maybe because things are free, it doesn't seem as valuable. And that's why people don't really take it as seriously. But for me, I'm just like, free. Okay, let's go.
Yes.
I'm going to learn this immediately.
Yeah. I do the same. I am on our learning platforms like crazy.
Girl, I love me free, okay?
Yes. Okay, we're getting towards the end. But this is a question that I ask everyone that comes on the podcast. Should we all learn to code?
No. Coding isn't for everyone. And if you start learning to code and you realize, I really don't like this, there's no reason to force your brain to conform into knowing how to use functions to create a button. There's no reason to go through
what an error is.
There's no need to go through the stress of that, because technology is much more than code, right?
Yep.
Of course, software wouldn't be software without code. But if you're not a coder, if that's not for you, we also need managers and operations, HR, finance, marketing, copywriters. We need a lot. It takes a large team of experts in different fields to get software to be successful. So like, if you don't like coding, it's okay. Should you be familiar with HTML? Sure. It's good to know how websites are structured, but if you don't want to do it, there's no need to.
That's fine too. Yeah, I like that. I really like that. I'm also all for being curious about it, trying it out. And when you're working in tech, it's always nice to have tried it out, but it doesn't mean you have to code for a living or that you have to be an expert. But it's nice to sort of have an understanding.
I think it's kind of like mathematics. We all learn advanced concepts in mathematics in high school, but we're not all mathematicians or physicists or scientists, but we learned it. So do I think the fundamentals of coding should be in like high school similarly to maths? Yes, especially in today's environment. But like, should you learn it on your own? If you want to, go ahead.
Okay, on that one, what would you say to someone that, so both you and I have transitioned. We had everything else and then transitioned. But what would you say to someone that is looking to get into university and they want to have a tech career? What should they go to uni?
Question. Yeah. That's a good question, because again, a tech career can come from many different fields. And like, as a young person, you don't know anything. You don't. If I offended you, I'm not sorry. You really don't know, because our brain isn't even fully formed at 18. What would I say? I would say, what do you like to do? Especially like if you want to work in the tech industry. Okay, what is your life telling you about your interest? What do you gravitate towards? How do you see yourself working with people? So like me, for example, when I was going to college, I always liked helping people, and I always liked seeing people go from point A to point B. And I loved being a part of that process, which is kind of why I chose social work, because I'm just like, oh, I can help people lift themselves out of terrible situations. And so that's kind of why I went into that. So it's just like, are you good at math in school? You can go into programming. Are you good at delivering talks? Like, what is that called? like, what are those competition calls? Speech competitions or
Toastmasters. Are those competitions? The
those
Toastmasters. I also don't remember.
But like, are you good at like talking in public and doing all that stuff? You can go into business. You can go into study like product management. You can go in. It's just like, what are you interested in? Like, what does your hobbies and your schooling? What does it tell you about yourself? And kind of sort of figure out what you want to do from there. Or you can just do research on the money and whatever high money appeals to you, go study that.
yeah. So you should, if you were 18, and can you also then just straight away go to boot camp, or preferably you go to university, or
I don't know. I'm
up to you.
I'm personally of the opinion that like, if you're 18 and you want to go to college, go to college. But then that goes into like the cost of college and whether or not you're good in school. But like, if you're 18 and you want to go to a boot camp, go to a boot camp. But I personally think that boot camp are designed for professionals who want to change careers because it makes it easier. But hey, you're 18, you have choice and free will. So I think do what you think is best and like consult professionals.
Yeah, I like that. Really, really like that. Okay. I have enjoyed speaking to you so much. And I love your content. I've been in your DMs so many times, shamelessly in your DMs so many times. Thank you so much for always accommodating me. And I
think you're lucky because you got into my DMs early where it wasn't overwhelming. Like now, oh my goodness, it's so overwhelming, the DMs. I can't even get to everybody and I feel so bad. I'm sorry, I can't do it. I am one person.
It's understandable. Yeah, I'm happy I got in early. Because now we're chatting. And that's the other thing. If you are going to do something with your career, don't be shy to slide into people's DMs.
Yes.
Because you never know what opportunities could come out of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been an honor having you.
Yeah, thank you. This is a great chat. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I will put Kedasha's social media in the description, so you can go and follow her and learn as much as you can. I can assure you, it's really, really amazing to follow her content, and she breaks it down. She really breaks it down, beginner to people that just want to improve and be reminded of some of the basic concepts, the advanced concepts, life as we know it. It's all there. So feel free. It will be everything. Any final words from you?
Final words is to follow your curiosity and don't wait for somebody to give you the information. If you see something and you're just like, I wonder what that is, instead of asking the person, go Google it.
Nice. Thank you so much. Go Google it. On that note, we ended. Thank you.